Next is Supervisor of Elections. Julie's here for Deborah Clark. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you all, too. Thank you.
It's Gator Blue.
Yeah.
Please.
Oh, I can always count on you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chairman Maroney, Commissioners, thank you for having us here today. If I may, I'd like to take a moment to just introduce staff who's with me today. We have Jason Latimer, our Communications Director, Mark Gillette, our IT Administrator, and Dawn Ricketts, our Finance Manager. And although she's not technically on staff, Jewel White, the Chief Assistant County Attorney, is a part of our election team. Jewel serves as the county attorney for the Supervisor of Elections and also serves as the attorney for the canvassing board. And while we're on the subject of the canvassing board, I'd just like to take a moment and thank those who have had the opportunity to serve on the canvassing board. You have no idea how much we appreciate that. The canvassing board plays a significant role in the election process, and your responsibilities are great. And knowing that each of you sincerely cares about the process and that you're willing to step up and take the time to be a part of that team is very much appreciated. And Mark Woodard and Bill, and I'm not sure if I see Helen, but with OMB, thank you for all that you do. You're all approachable. Your willingness to go the extra mile is always helpful, especially when we have to navigate through this process. So thank you for that. Okay, onward. Our base budget target was $6,973,700. Our proposed base budget is $6,968,001, which is $5,690 under target. We have submitted a proposed total budget of $7,778,633, which includes $581,132 of non-recurring funds to upgrade our voting equipment and $229,500 of non-recurring funds to purchase electronic poll books. In 2007, we were mandated by the Florida legislature to purchase an optical scan voting machine system. If you fast forward 8 years later, elections are much different. The biggest change is the number of voters who choose to vote by mail, and the equipment used to process those ballots needs to be upgraded in order for us to increase processing speeds and be able to meet legal deadlines. The requested upgrade consists of new high-speed scanners that are used to tabulate mail and provisional ballots, new hardware and software relating to the ballot tabulation system, and wireless modems for precinct ballot scanners. We want to take some time to walk through what this upgrade includes and why this upgrade is necessary. The upgrade includes new high-speed scanners, which will significantly increase our ability to process mail ballots. Because the new scanners process ballots continuously, we will be able to process on average 10,000 ballots per hour per scanner, as opposed to 1,500 ballots per hour per scanner with our current system. The discrepancy in the number of ballots per hour is because our current ballot system stops every time it sees a write-in, an overvote, a blank ballot, or a damaged ballot. This stoppage means that the operator has to remove the ballot from the scanner and place it in an outstack bin before resuming. To put this in perspective, during the 2012 general election, our scanner stopped over 17,000 times because of write-ins, overvotes, blank, and damaged ballots. With the new scanners, they do not stop for these reasons. The scanners automatically divert these ballots into configurable outstack trays, which means less manual intervention. The new ballot scanners also have an improved ballot transfer path. This keeps the ballots flat and less likely to jam and become damaged, which then have to be duplicated and processed, which if you served on the canvassing board, you certainly know what that's all about. We brought with us 2 videos that we would like to play that will provide the Commission with a visual of how our current ballot scanners operate and how our new scanners would operate. And we'll start with video 1, which is our current system, which are called the M650s. We used test decks that came from our District 64 special election, so our last election, which included a write-in candidate, just to kind of give some sort of comparable as to what we dealt with in 2012.
Vote. Overvote. Write-in. Write-in. Overvote. Write-in.
So that's our current system. And the second video will be of the DS850, which comes with the new upgrade.
Whenever you're ready. Okay.
Are you trying to get the volume?
Yeah.
Wow.
So those
Yeah, go ahead.
those ones going into the top tray are the ones that would be problematic in the current system?
Yes, ma'am, those are the out stacks. So where you saw in the first video where we had to stop and then David had to pick it up and put it in our makeshift out stack bins, it's automatically diverting those.
So follow up, Mr. Chair. So does that mean that those two people that were currently operating that machine, there doesn't need to be any human person on this machine at all?
No, we would have still an operator, but we wouldn't need an out stack individual.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? I'm sorry.
Any other questions for Julie at this point? Commissioner Seal?
I noticed that you have a request for an additional person in your budget.
Yes. Yes, there's an additional full-time employee, and that is for our voter services department.
Or what?
Voter services department, so they handle voter registration, mail ballots, anything that has to do with voter services. Yes, ma'am.
So this investment in this new technology will not create one less staff person who doesn't need to be there?
No. This purely deals with how we tabulate our mail ballots, and then some of the things I'm about to talk about deal with what happens election night and what will happen post-election day. So the person that we included as part of our budget as a full-time position is somebody that would be responsible for all pre-election preparations, so processing applications, processing mail ballots requests, helping us balance mail ballots every night. Somebody that's in the voter services department that even during the course of a year is helping process initiative petitions, candidate petitions, voter registration applications, list maintenance, that kind of thing. But we will reduce, at some point, it will help us reduce casual staff, temporary staff that will help us election night when we tabulate, or during the 15 days when the canvassing board's allowed to process ballots.
Commissioner Jordan? Nothing. Commissioner Justice?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
You mentioned in the talking about the equipment that it would help speed up to meet statutory timelines. What has the legislature or some outside source mandated our speeding up? Because it seems that we get our results pretty quick from you all to a great turnaround right now.
That's the problem. They haven't changed anything, and that's the problem. And later in the presentation, when we talk about post-election responsibilities and when we get into recounts, what hasn't changed are deadlines. So we have an increase on one end, but we don't have more time to do what we have to do post-election. So they haven't made changes.
Okay. I thought when you were saying that you needed it to speed up your results in order to meet those new deadlines. So
for post-election requirements, so when we're in possible recount mode.
So they.
I promise I'll get
Okay,
there.
all
I
right.
promise.
All right.
It will all come full circle.
Very good.
Commissioner Welch?
Okay, I know you want to finish. Just on these scanners, you have $581,000 in the budget. How many scanners does that purchase?
It's 3 scanners. It includes 3 scanners.
And do you know offhand how old the scanners you have now are?
We've had them 8 years, but I'm not sure the technology is old. I mean, at least a decade, 2 decades old.
Well, the video
Yes.
tells the tale. But
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
I want to thank Commissioner Eggers as I'm looking down this side of the dais for serving on the canvassing board this year for me, being that I wasn't around during the election, and you'll be seeing him again for the November election,
It
too.
was fascinating. It was really interesting.
He loves being there, so.
Yeah. And
That's
they made
good.
special.
He's willing
They
to
made
come
a
back.
special corner for me because I kept knocking drinks over. So it was not good.
And then I had to redo the ballot, all because of you.
But thank you for taking care of me there.
Thanks, Dave. Commissioner Long?
Yes, Julie, my question might be a bit premature, and maybe you're going to cover this as you move forward, but in this budget, do you have any budgetary requests to do online registration?
The online voter registration, the state legislature made an effective date of October 1, 2017. So if there are cost savings, it would be not in this budget year because it's something that can't be implemented yet until, at a minimum, October 1, 2017. But hopefully the governor signs the bill so there's even a chance that it can be. So, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No guarantee of that.
All right, Julie, continue.
Okay. In addition to the new ballot scanners, the upgrade also includes new server and workstation hardware. As you may be aware, it is Pinellas County standard to replace workstations about every 4 years. Our current workstation hardware and servers are 8 years old. And replacing our aging hardware and upgrading to Microsoft-supported Windows 7 will improve the functionality and reliability of our ballot tabulation system. This upgrade also includes the use of wireless modem technology in our precinct ballot scanners. Currently, our precinct scanners use antiquated analog phone lines to modem election results from polling places election night. Prior to each election, the phone lines are checked multiple times. However, we see modem failures because of the weather or because somebody mowed the lawn and killed one of the lines, or in a recent election, somebody stole the copper wire out of a phone box at the facility, so that polling place couldn't modem. A single failure can lead up to a 45-minute delay in our receiving election results and thus posting election results, because the USB stick from the ballot scanner has to be brought in for processing. Wireless modem technology will eliminate the installation, maintenance, and use of analog phone lines at the Election Service Center and at our 222 polling locations. And to speak to an area of cost savings, this is definitely, because, again, we have to send folks out a couple times before the election, check those modem lines, we have to install them, we have to pay for those lines, so there's some cost savings here. In regard to the tabulation ballot system, the upgrade will take us from Unity Suite, which runs on a COBOL flat file database, to Electionware, which runs on a SQL database. The SQL database is far superior, as the COBOL database is decades old, which contains a single instance of data in a central location and provides advanced reporting functionality. So to bring this full circle, Commissioner, and to further point why this upgrade is necessary, we need to talk about mail ballot return statistics from previous elections and current post-election deadlines. If you look at the 2008 primary election, this was the first countywide election that we used our current voting system. In that election, we processed 36,414 mail ballots. In the comparable 2014 primary election, we processed 114,383 mail ballots. That is an increase of 214%.
So countywide, it was only 36,000.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was. We had a 12% turnout in that primary, which was odd because that was literally half than what it usually is.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure why.
Which primary?
2008.
2008 primary.
36,000.
In the 2008 presidential general election, we processed 184,137 mail ballots. And in the comparable 2012 presidential general election, we processed 248,668 mail ballots, and that's an increase of 35%. What hasn't increased since 2008 is the length of time between when we must certify the first set of unofficial results and when we have to certify the second set of unofficial results, which for a primary election could be a window of fewer than 48 hours. In a statewide election, all 67 counties are required to submit the first set of unofficial results with the Department of State. The state then must compile those results in order to determine if an automatic recount is required in a federal, state, or multi-county race. If so, the counties must wait for the Secretary of State, who has no statutory deadline, to order that recount. Both machine and manual recounts have to be completed by the same mandated deadline. And Florida state law says if a canvassing board does not certify the results of the recount prior to the deadline to submit the second set of unofficial results, the results of the recount cannot be included in the certified election results.
That's ridiculous.
It is prudent for us, as we make preparations for the 2016 presidential election cycle, to look at the increases in the number of mail ballots being returned, what is involved in preparing for and conducting a recount, along with the deadline to file those recount results, and ask ourselves if we had to conduct a countywide machine and manual recount, could we meet the statutory deadline? By upgrading our equipment, we put ourselves in a position to increase the speed and efficiency in which we process mail ballots, and this will provide us with the foundation necessary to support our voters who choose to vote by mail and meet our statutory deadlines. I don't know if you want to stop. That's the part on the upgrade.
Any
there's any other
questions
questions
on that part?
Sure.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So if we were using 2012 numbers and you have the new equipment, it would take you 8 hours to do the counting all the mail ballots?
Yeah, so you
using
have...
three machines at 10,000 an hour?
Yeah, give me a second.
And that would meet your state?
Yeah, so with our new scanners, it would take us 10 hours to process what we did for that countywide election and 56 hours to process with our current system. And that's just standing there and those ballots going through. That's not what we have to do to prepare for a recount. A recount is an entirely separate election. You have to program the tabulation system to just recognize that race or races, because it's not guaranteed it's just going to be one recount. To recognize that race, you have to then proof that database. You have to make sure the precincts that are involved in that race are included in the tab system. You have to create test decks because you're required by state law to conduct a pre-logic and accuracy test prior to conducting the recount. That all has to be proved. Then you have to go through the process of starting the recount. You have to get it all going, and then you have post-election testing. So that's just literally putting scanners through the ballot. There's a whole process pre and a whole process post.
And I know this wouldn't save on the manpower part, but let's say we got down to the end of our budget and we said, man, we can't come up with 580. We could get you 2 scanners instead of 3, mm-hmm. and you could still use the old. I mean, would you still be able to use the old software, the old scanner?
No. The new system requires electionware, and electionware works in conjunction with those 3 scanners.
And would you be up and running then for this 16, or would be using these for municipals in 15? We will be using them this fall for the municipal elections and countywide in the presidential preference primary. Okay. And you're going to go into the poll books, or are you done with the poll books as well? I got the poll books next. Thanks. Yay. Go ahead. Okay. I know that we all feel strongly, as stewards of taxpayers' dollars, that we should not ask for something until we need it. And in saying that, we purchased 700 electronic poll books so we could implement the new technology countywide in the 2014 primary election.
We found that the electronic poll books worked extremely well for both our staff and for our voters. And in fiscal year 15, we purchased 43 additional electronic poll books.
Tell the public what a poll book is,
Yeah,
please.
electronic poll books, when back in the olden days, right, we used to have paper precinct registers. So you would go into your polling place, you would show them your picture and signature ID. The poll worker would look up your name, they'd flick through books, and they would find you, and you would sign. Basically, we've turned that into an electronic process. So now voters are able to walk into a polling place, and if they have their driver's license or Florida ID, we can scan that. It looks through our database, finds the voter, pulls them up. The voter signs a signature pad. They get a ballot ticket. It literally cuts the wait time, the check-in process by half. So it's a much more streamlined process. It eliminated many manual pre- and post-election responsibilities. We used to have to post to those precinct registers. So let's say, Commissioner Maroney, you voted by mail and you returned that mail ballot. We would, after we printed those precinct registers, we would have to take a stamp and mark ballot returns so that you couldn't go into your polling place and try to vote again. Not that you would do that, but that's just an example.
We used to do that all the time. Only kidding.
And then post-election, what we would have to do is we would have to go through those precinct registers with little wands, and we would have to scan the barcodes next to everybody who had a signature so that we could give voter history credit to that voter for voting, where now it's a manual process, an automated process where it just uploads real time as people are voting during the day, which is really fun too, because up on our website you can see by precinct on election day how many voters are turning out at those polling places. So overall, the electronic poll books they save money, and they also help streamline the process on election days and during early voting to also help those voters too. So it's a great balancing act. We've got the convenience of voting by mail, but voters who still choose to vote early or at the polls on election day also have the convenience of using our electronic poll books so they can get in and out of there and still participate in the process.
Great. See, folks that vote by mail didn't see that, didn't see that new technology.
Yep.
So.
But voting by mail is still convenient.
Yeah, wonderful.
So going into what we're doing in 2016, you got to look at what's on the ballot. And we're going to have an open presidential seat. We could have medical marijuana again on the ballot. And we could have a number of county charter amendments that stemming from the review committee. And we need to have enough electronic poll books to meet the needs of those motivated early and election day voters, and ensure that we have the tools necessary to process those voters in a timely manner and avoid lengthy delays at our polling places. That is why we included in this budget non-reoccurring dollars of $229,500 to purchase 100 electronic poll books. As previously stated, we submitted a proposed base budget of $6,968,001, which is under budget. Our proposed base budget includes costs associated with conducting list maintenance, processing initiative and candidate petition signatures, candidate qualifying, conducting the 2016 presidential preference primary, the 2016 primary election, and preparations for the 2016 presidential general election. This November and December, we will conduct list maintenance of our voter registration database, which is required by Florida law. By conducting list maintenance, we are better able to keep our voter file current and accurate. This is beneficial for many reasons, including mailing ballots to the correct addresses, voters having correct polling place information on their voter information cards, and candidates and political committees and parties receiving correct current mailing address information. Going into 2016, we will see an increase in the number of initiative and candidate petition signatures that we will have to process. February 1st, 2016 is the deadline to submit the number of valid petitions signatures to the Department of State to determine if a proposed constitutional amendment is eligible to be placed on the 2016 general election ballot. For just the medical marijuana and the land conservation proposed amendments that were placed on the 2014 general election ballot, We verified over 181,000 petition signatures, 30,000 of which had to be verified in the 3 weeks prior to that February 1st, 2014 deadline. And leading up to the 2014 candidate petition deadlines, we processed over 15,000 candidate petition signatures. With 24 statewide initiative petitions that are currently circulating the state for 2016 general election ballot placement and 57 offices up for election in Pinellas County, we are anticipating at least that volume of activity in this upcoming year. During this past legislative session, the Florida legislature changed the presidential preference primary date to March 15th, 2016. So if you can believe it, the presidential election cycle is literally around the corner. We will be receiving the final list of presidential candidates from the Department of State in December, and we will be mailing ballots for the presidential preference primary to our military and overseas voters in January. For both the presidential preference primary and for the August 30th primary election, we will be conducting early voting at our 3 offices for 9 days, including the Sunday prior to the election, 8 hours per day. This is a total of 72 hours of early voting for each location. We will also be providing 12 remote ballot drop-off locations in addition to our 3 offices. Although the general election is being held during next budget year, there are costs associated with preparing for that election in this proposed budget, such as poll worker classes, which will begin at our 3 different training locations in the month of September, and our assembling more than 265,000 mail ballot kits in September so they can be ready to be mailed as required by statute the first week of October. We do want the Commission to know that we will include in our 2017 fiscal year proposed budget costs to provide early voting during the 2016 general election at our 3 offices and 2 remote early voting sites for 14 days, including the Sunday prior to the election, 12 hours per day. This is a total of 168 hours of early voting, which is the maximum number of hours permitted under Florida law. County candidate qualifying will also take place in 2016. There are 32 seats up at the county level. In addition, persons wanting to run for state and precinct committee men and women will also need to qualify in June. In 2012, we had over 350 people qualify for those seats. There is also a more robust campaign treasurer's reporting schedule, which includes monthly reports, and then in June, it starts on a bi-weekly schedule and then eventually a weekly schedule for both the primary and general elections. And there are also new campaign finance reporting requirements for those state and precinct committee men and women. So 2016, it has the markings of a very exciting election year. We are a very large state, and then we are a swing state with 29 electoral college votes, only behind that of California and Texas. Florida is going to be front and center. All eyes will be on us, and as always, everything that we do will be put under a microscope. Our voters will play a major role in nominating and electing the next president of the United States. Next year, voters will have the opportunity to cast votes for U.S. Senate, 3 congressional districts, along with state attorney, public defender, state Senate and state House districts, circuit and county judges, constitutional officers, board of county commissioners, school board, and special districts. Elections are what we do. We are committed to conducting elections accurately and with the utmost integrity. And we thank you for this opportunity to present our budget. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Julie, let me say thank you again for an unbelievable professional presentation. You very, very good.
Thank you.
Very good. I have 2 questions for you. One is that you had said that you had included in this request the preparations for the November 2016 election, right? So that will be in the next year's request for the November?
Yeah, so there's some preparations. So we have activities that will start in September because it's an election that takes months to get ready for, but we'll have poll worker classes, just to name a couple, poll worker classes, and then assembling those mail ballot kits. The postage and such will be in, because it won't go into the mail until October.
Mm-hmm.
But anything that happens from October 1, so that includes early voting, that includes election day, paying poll workers, all that will happen in our fiscal 2017 budget.
Because I saw that you had a line presidential preference primary, a little bit over $1 million, 1.1 million.
Yes.
So in the next request, it'll show the actual presidential election cost.
The general election.
The general cost.
Yeah, so what
And the
happened
next one.
was, in last year's budget, we only had one countywide election, and then in this year's budget, it's two countywides, and the next year's budget will be one, so it's just secular.
Okay.
So I think OMB and Mark Woodard worked with us, knowing that the presidential preference primary is something that we're mandated to do, and they rolled that into our base target, so we appreciate that.
Okay, the next question I have is on inactive registered voters. What is an inactive? How many times do they not vote?
So this is an inactive?
Inactive, you have
So
53,000 last year.
So an inactive voter is someone who we've mailed something to, whether it's a voter information card, a mail ballot, something that is not forwardable. It's required to be bounced back by the U.S. Postal Service as undeliverable.
Okay.
So it comes back to us as undeliverable, and that voter then, by statute, this is all required by statute, is put into an inactive status because they haven't responded to any correspondence to try to get address updates. So we've sent them information asking them to confirm their address where they live. They haven't responded to that, so we have to put them into what they call inactive status. Also by Florida statute, if a voter then does not vote in two federal elections, general elections, then we are required by statute to then remove that voter from the voter rolls, and that voter would then need to
So it's
apply.
two federal elections after the first return letter or return
Yeah,
card
so
or
let's
whatever.
say today, or let's say that right before the general election, we mail you your mail ballot and it comes back as undeliverable. So then that's going to be that general election that is going to take place,
Okay.
and then another one, and then you're required
Then
by
you're
statute
required.
to
And
come
that's
off the voter
over
rolls.
53,000 right now?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're,
We're very people move. It's even from one election to the next in an effort to save money. What we do prior to every election, before we mail our mail ballots, we do a national change of address run on our on those mail ballot addresses, and we get back. People move literally from a primary to general. You'll have thousands of people who have moved.
Wow.
And you have to Templeways. That's another big category in Pinellas County, because you have voters who live here for a period of time. They forget to tell us they're going back up to Connecticut to live for a couple months.
well, you're doing a great job on that, even though the number is so high to me. Because in my campaign last year, out of the first class mail, I bet you I received like 20 letters back. And that was thousands of, pieces of literature that went to a whole district of 250,000.
Yeah, and that's what's the benefit of list maintenance. It's not what it at times is dubbed as a purge. I mean, there's a process, but its main objective is to keep the voter roll current, so that you don't have folks who are deceased, people who've moved out of state, people who are no longer in Pinellas County, they live in Hillsborough. So it's you're maintaining the voter file, which again benefits the voters, it benefits the public, and it benefits our office because we are able to properly prepare for an election. We know how many poll workers we need, we know how many ballots we need, because we don't have 50,000 people who are on the active side that we then have to take into consideration.
Well, great job. That's great.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Thank you. Going off of the chairman's question, so it would only be on a return of a mail ballot that they get on this list?
No, it would be any correspondence where it's not a forwardable piece of mail.
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to figure
So
out.
if
When would you?
first-class mail, for, like, let's say we sent a letter to you because of some sort of issue, or we sent you a voter information card, or if we sent you a mail ballot. So it's any type of correspondence, with the exception of, like, a sample ballot, which we mail to households to an address. That's not going to be bounced back to us.
Okay. And we don't have permanent mail ballot voters now?
No, sir. A request is only good through 2 regularly scheduled general elections, which is good, too, because, again, it keeps folks with their current addresses so that we can mail those to the proper locations.
And then a question on the poll books. We have 743 now, and you're looking to get 100 more.
Yeah.
And that's just maybe 1 per every 2 precincts to add on, or you'll add on based on the population in that precinct?
Yeah, so it's all based on how many voters are sent to that polling location, and we also take into consideration how many would turn out on election day, so we do take that into consideration. But if you look at the numbers, it would basically give us an average of 3 EVITs per location. You would never want to send to a polling place less than 2, because if you have a single point failure and it's 7:15 in the morning, that's not good. So you have to have 2. And then you have some locations that will have up to 5. Because you have some locations like Precinct 101, Pinellas Community Church, which has upwards, I think, of 9,000 voters. I mean, it's a huge facility. It can handle it. But you need to make sure you have enough electronic poll books.
And then on the mail ballots, in 2012, we had 248,000 mail ballots, you said, out of 459,000 votes cast in the presidential. I mean, what do you anticipate? What percentage of our vote in the 2016 will be mail versus actually showing up at the polling place like I still like to do with my neighbors?
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, but basically what we're preparing for is still a 40 to 50% early voting and election day turnout. And so it's a balanced approach, Commissioner, that we want this upgrade so that we can process ballots because voters choose to vote by mail, and we can process them in a timely manner. We can meet the required deadlines, and we're also approaching it that we need to ensure that voters who still choose to vote at early voting sites and at the polls on election day are processed in a timely manner. And so it's basically equal treatment amongst all. It's a balanced approach. We want the convenience over here, but we also want it for our voters who choose to vote early and on election day.
And the 2 additional early voting sites, have they been designated, or you'll figure those out?
We've reserved the Palm Harbor the center of Palm Harbor, the old Pinellas Palm Harbor Community Center, and Gulfport, the location that we're at in 2014. Okay. So we have those locations reserved.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Anything? Commissioner Sue?
Nope.
No? Okay, Commissioner Welch.
Again, I want to echo the chair's comments on the great job you and Deb and all of your colleagues do. Just a couple points on the purge. I just want to commend you on the very logical approach that your office took to that. It just wasn't a random purge, or even some of the state-mandated purges weren't accurate. You all have a very logical approach to that, so I just wanted to say that for the record. And the ballot drop-offs has worked off very well, and you had to swim upstream on that as well, working with the tax collector and others to keep that available in our county, so I commend you on that. If you would, at some point, I'd like for your technical person back there, I forgot your first name, sir. Mark. To can you just send us something on the wireless modem technology and the security on that? In case we get questions on it.
If I may,
Sure.
Chair, thank you for bringing that up. That's important because I know people get concerned about its wireless and analog lines. What happens election night is very preliminary. It's a way to get results in a timely manner, be able to post those results, because we know that any delay in results makes people nervous, especially those of you up for election.
No, we can wait days. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
That's why Charlie had all those questions for next year.
But
I still remember counting at 49th Street with payphones. So.
Yeah. So what happens, though, with wireless, so we would modem wirelessly, But those USB sticks come back election night along with the paper ballots. So election night, the USB sticks come back, and we reprocess those USB sticks. So they're not anything, the results that are certified, that are a part of the official record, are not the results that were modemed. They're the results that were reprocessed election night.
Okay.
And I also would like to just mention that we have the paper ballots as the fallback. And the commissioners that have served on the canvassing board know that we have a manual post-election audit that's required. And what we do is we literally look at every ballot. We manually tabulate to ensure that what was counted on the system is actually what was is what we manually see. And every manual audit that we've conducted, not to our surprise, but every manual audit that we've conducted since having this system has turned out to be perfect. It's on point.
So you're just at the precinct, you're just using standard Wi-Fi?
Yeah, so it's a wireless modem, yep, and that goes into the actual DS 200, which are the scanners that we use right now at the polling places, would not change. The only thing that you would have is this new device in the back to allow us to hit a button and it goes versus having to
But it's
plug
just
in a
going
phone
over
line.
regular Wi-Fi? It's not a secured?
It's a special tube.
If I could.
Come on up, Mark.
It's a special tube from the precinct to the.
You're a Samsung guy. I don't listen.
I didn't hear Apple technology and all of that.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. Mark, you just say what your name is?
Mark Gillette,
Okay.
IT Administrator for Supervisor of Elections Office. It will be using, we'll be using Verizon's wireless network,
Okay.
just like your cell phone would be using or something like that. So that, it's a socket modem that would go into the DS200s, and that would wirelessly, through the Verizon wireless network, communicate that back to an SFTP server, and then our tabulation network would reach out to that SFTP server and grab those results and pull them back.
Okay. But as Julie said, it's just preliminary. You still, the USBs are the
Correct.
the Bible bit, so
Correct.
to speak. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Long.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Julie, what happens if you send out the mail to purge your files, and you send it, and then it comes back to you as undeliverable, and then on election day, that person shows up and wants to vote, and they still have their same address? I mean, then
Thank
what
you.
happens then?
Thank you. Great question. So what would happen if a voter wanted to vote, as an inactive voter wanted to vote by mail at an early voting site or on election day, they would simply need to just confirm their address with our office, and they would be able to cast a ballot in that election. So you're not off the rolls until you are literally off the rolls. So as long as you're active and inactive and you're eligible to vote in an election, you can participate. And for an inactive voter, it's just a matter of providing us with your current address, and it can be the address that we sent mail to and later came back undeliverable.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was important to
Yes,
clarify
ma'am,
for
thank
the
you.
people listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Julie, thank you very much. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Our best to
Excellent.
Deborah.